So you were involved, or the practices that you worked with were involved in the pilot studies. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went?
For the practices, I think it was probably a bit easier because I was involved. I was getting to hear about what the pilot was going to require, and I could sort of run it for myself. For the surgeries in Newham, the pilot study involved basically just following a set of rules. The randomised controlled trial dictated how they should go about finding patients, how they should go about recruiting them into the trial, and actually dictated the care that would be delivered for them. So in Newham, I think it was probably a bit easier than it is elsewhere, because the rules around the randomised controlled trial specified exactly how that should be done.
Did you find that it was something that they had to persuade patients and doctors to take part in?
I think there was a lot of persuasion. The persuasion for the doctors was the issue that I was probably most involved with, and that really was a hearts and minds, and almost a campaign over a good 12 months while the project was setting up and the telehealth was being planned. A good 12 months worth of answering questions, understanding what concerns and difficulties might be, and then figuring out an appropriate response.
It might be a bit of a difficult question, but what is your opinion then about doctors who are wary of adopting these new technologies? Do you think that it's misplaced?
No, I think it's very well placed. I think where telehealth was when we started the WSD in Newham, it was entirely right to be sceptical and to be the advocates of their patients. I do think things have moved a little bit in the 3 or 4 years since then, and I was involved in a telehealth early project, a pilot project elsewhere in London. One of the overriding memories I had of that was the doctors turned around and said, well, we're giving you all this information, is this all you can do with it? So we promptly went away and came back to the next meeting with a lot more analysis. So I do think times have moved on a little bit. More people are more engaged and keen to take on and consider things like telehealth.
There's lots of talk today about evidence, the need for evidence. Where is the evidence? What in your experience in Newham was the evidence that patients and carers were benefiting from this telehealth care?
I think the strongest evidence in Newham was the patients and the carers. They had a support group, so a forum that met for itself. The really simple thing to say is they've continued. That group that used to meet as part of the telehealth and the WSD has continued to meet since the project has ended. The support group has, to my knowledge, changed the lives of, that's a very big phrase, but it really has changed the lives of at least a half a dozen patients who have found that what were previously the stigmatizing effects of their illness being cut out from society, not being able to do the things they thought of and they wanted to do as normal activities, well, all of those things that previously were very negative have suddenly become something that they can change the experience in something positive that, if nothing else, they're able to share their experience and their learning with other patients and carers. Of course, the carer support group supported each other, supported patients themselves a great deal. So that's certainly a very clear description of the effect on patients and carers.
Of course, rolling these things out nationally is very, very different to dealing with small groups of patients and practices like that. What do you feel about the rollout nationally? Is it transferable on a national scale?
I think that even if we don't have a clear journey through and a clear direction through, we're going to wind up with remote technologies, assistive technologies, including telehealth, becoming part of our lives just because the world around us is changing so much. I think there are some advantages to the services, to the social services and the health services taking the lead in that. I think those are primarily around the quality and ensuring equity.